Hello, Chameleon Wranglers. I am here with Jurgen van Overbeek, and we are going to be talking about the history of chameleon husbandry and the future. Welcome, Jurgen.
Hello, Bill. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well, and I'm excited to take a trip down memory lane and take out our crystal balls and see what the future is going to look like. So,
Sounds like a great plan.
let's see. We both started many decades ago, 30, 40 years ago. And
hmm
I know when I started, it was a little bit 40 years ago, we didn't have, it wasn't yet to the era of Madagascar totally open. Back then, it was like Jackson's Chameleons,
hmm
Leakey sending out of Kenya. And that was pretty much what we had access to. I mean, if you knew where to look, you could find others, but that was it. And it wasn't until the 90s that Madagascar just blew open. And you remember that time, right?
Yes, I'm thinking I started about keeping chameleons, really keeping chameleons and start breeding them around 25 years ago. But I worked in those days actually in a private zoo that also did imports of tropical reptiles, birds, mammals. And I was already 10 years earlier coming, and I see all the boxes with the chameleons coming in then. And like you said, actually in the 90s, yeah, it was incredible, Bill. Madagascar was fully open. They had like an export of 40 species that could be exported in high numbers. Africa, as good as all the countries, were open for exporting chameleons. Tanzania was exporting 25, maybe 30 species.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the sky was the limit, Bill. It was, yeah, each week I have to go to the airport, picking up imports, hundreds, hundreds. Yeah, I didn't count them, but it was actually like a non-stop coming of animals in those days.
Yeah, I remember looking at the price list and figuring out what species am I going to work with? And back then I didn't know all the species. And I was just looking at all of these things from Madagascar, Cameroon, Tanzania. I remember seeing Parsons for $70 and Quadricornis for $225 back then. It's like,
Yeah,
oh, what species do I work with? And I chose Jackson's chameleons because I love the Jacksons. But that was a time where there were no limits. And what was and they were just, unfortunately, they were cheap, relatively cheap.
correct.
How was it in Europe?
Well, it was yeah, a bit the same story actually. I mean, I think those days, if you count back, I think a pygmy chameleon was like $1, not even that. And you could buy them by 500,000, 2,000. I mean, it was like, and yeah, because there was such an amount of species available, different species, you can find them in pet shops on your corner, 10, 15 species, incredibly cheap. And okay, the good thing maybe was you see a lot of species. The bad thing was there was very little info available how to
Hmm.
keep them. A good terrarium, what's the setup, lighting, vitamins, hydration, cooling down. You just buy a chameleon. They gave a glass container, a glass terrarium, a basking spot, a plant in it, and some crickets. And that was actually what you get in those days as a chameleon. Of course, they didn't live long. And then they say, like, yeah, a chameleon, they don't live long, few months, a few years, yeah, maybe maximum. And it was actually cheaper, Bill, to buy a new chameleon in those days to bring a sick chameleon to a veterinarian.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a bit like overwhelming. The sky was the limit. If you see, yeah, what was available those. But yeah, most of the animals didn't end up well because of the information was not there, the proper care was not there, the good installations were not available. Yeah, okay, that was a bit of the situation.
Yeah. I got to say, remembering it was wonderful having access to so many species, but it really, I don't ever look at that time as something that I wish we could go back to.
Exactly. I think, on the other hand, many species, yeah, I think 85% of the species available then disappeared because nobody did an effort to even
Yeah.
try to breed them then. And now, finally, of course, Parsons are bred now. Information is coming from every side. Okay, the evolution is huge, actually. But like you say, it's a bit sad that almost nothing these days is available. If we should have like 10% of what we had then now, it would be amazing, with the knowledge we have now. But yeah, you cannot turn the tide, Bill.
Yeah. And also, that was too much. It was too
Yeah,
much. Too much
it
was
was.
available.
Mhm.
People, we as human beings can't concentrate when we have that many decisions. And so I remember back then, and I'm not proud to say this, I remember we would all be competing as to how many species we
Yeah.
could have on our species list. And
Hmm.
it was just, and I think it's because we didn't have the information. We were trying to get the information. We were trying to work with as much as we could to gather up as much experience as we could. But
Hmm.
it would be a while until we actually had enough experience and enough success that I could say that we actually started learning chameleon herpetoculture,
Hmm.
and we had to get out of the 90s to really start into learning. I mean, it was in the 90s that we just started to figure out how to reliably breed panther chameleons.
Yeah, correct.
I remember when I went to the second generation of panther chameleons, and that was an accomplishment. Uh,
Sure, sure. But also, Bill, there was just no info. I mean, there were a few books available then. I'm not going to say names or
okay,
writers, but okay, if I look into those books now from 30, 40 years ago, yeah, the info was so basic, and sorry that I say it, not correct. Also, sorry.
okay,
Yeah, okay. It was just, there was nothing, and people try to do their best. But yeah, if you don't know, let's say mountain species were kept like a pardalis. I mean, people
yeah,
had no idea about cooling down, about fogging, keeping the temperatures low, enough UV. I mean, yeah, everything was kept like a Yemen or a pardalis. I mean, all the other species also. So yeah, that
yeah,
was actually a perfect scenario of going everything wrong.
yeah. I
So
remember.
yeah.
Of course, I was a kid back then. So, seventh grade. So it's not like I had a whole lot of great insight into how the world worked, but it was this idea, oh, they look exotic. They must like it warm.
Yeah, yeah. And it was actually, they were incredible cheap. You walk into a pet shop, and let's say you see for the first time a Montium, and then you see a small lizard with horns, with sail fins.
Mhm.
It was like, wow, a miniature dinosaur.
Yeah.
Incredible. I mean, people were blown away, and they cost like $30. And I mean, and the pet shop were selling a lamp, a terrarium, and some crickets, and they were happy. I mean,
Yep. Yep.
yeah, of course, a month later he was dead, and they came to buy a new one.
Well,
It was, yeah.
yeah. Let's go into the evolution of husbandry between
Hmm.
United States and Europe, and there was this very interesting parallel development to where it's like we went different paths, and there wasn't a whole lot of communication between. I
Hmm.
mean, we all talked, but it's like we still had two parallel evolutionary paths. And let's just pick, well, caging and hydration are two
Hmm.
big ones. We started off with the screen cages. And so in the United States, screen cages got so popular to the point of people saying you have to keep it in a screen cage or your chameleon will die. And
Hmm.
which is very interesting because if you look at in Europe, it was all solid
Yeah.
side cages. And
Hmm.
so
Yeah.
and nobody, well, I know there were some people who are saying, okay, we've got it. You can't say keep it in a screen cage or they'll die, because obviously it's not happening. But
Hmm.
so in the United States, we started off screen cages. That was it. And I remember back in the 80s, we started off with water bowls. This is
Hmm.
an 80s thing. And
Yeah.
because chameleons, wouldn't reliably recognize that, we had to do tricks so they would recognize the water. We would put a bubbler in it. Some
Hmm.
chameleons would say, okay, that's water. Some chameleons just wouldn't get it. And so it wasn't a reliable method. So we'd had to put a bubbler. And once we put a bubbler, the chameleon could see the bubbles come up, and then
Hmm.
chameleons would drink.
Yeah.
And we were just so glad when we figured out misters and put plants in there, and then you put the mist, and so the chameleons would drink off of the leaves, and that misting would be the hydration method of choice until like about 5 years ago in the United
Yeah.
States.
Correct. Hmm.
We really didn't. It wasn't until I started talking with Peter Nechas on the Chameleon Academy podcast that we started getting the idea of fogging. And then I dug into it and I found Mario Youngman, who'd been fogging
Hmm.
for over 10 years. And
Yeah.
then we started getting the idea, okay, how can we use fogging here? So
Hmm.
it has been quite a progression and growth and evolution for our hydration methods. And I'm wondering if you could go back to when you started with chameleons. How did hydration evolve in Europe?
Yeah, if I go back really until the beginning, the 90s, okay, people figured out that a chameleon was not drinking from a water bowl. Okay, that was already figured out. So actually, the only info, if you went to a pet shop, actually, and you went to buy a chameleon, they were like, okay, buy a terrarium, mostly glass with ventilation, put a plant in it, and spray like 2 times a day, and the chameleon will drink from the water droplets of the plant. That was actually the info that you get then. And yeah, most of the time you could keep, depending on which species, you could keep them a while alive, but mostly the hydration was not enough. They get dehydrated, and then they get problems with the kidneys, get sick, you lost them. So yeah, okay, that was extremely basic. But then, okay, in those days, the end of the 90s, already, especially in Europe, a very small group of people were really into trying to give the chameleons the best, try to breed them,
Mm-hmm.
And those people worked, yeah, okay, also with some biologists. They had some information about elevation in the rainforests. So they were figuring out, like, okay, we need to keep them cool, especially mountain species. And then they were starting already then with misting, drippers, giving extra water out of a pipette. So yeah, taking care of animals individually, misting. So yeah, they were already advanced. They take a lot of progress to 90% of the other people. So and that was already the beginning, let's say, of keeping animals in a good, decent way, not perfect, but okay. There was already a start of. There was and there was of course then there was the big fairs, ham, and then people were meeting each other, talking each other. Information was shared. You were learning, and so step by step, people were okay. Yeah, okay. Let's try a finer mist. Let's try another ventilation. Let's try dripping for a person if they are drinking. Let's give them some extra with a pipette direct in the beak. So yeah, then you see the animals. The eyes were better, color was nicer, total health looked a lot better. So yeah, there was really an evolution in step by step how to do it better in the benefit of the animals. So yeah, that was but it took like years, Bill. Yeah, okay.
And how about caging?
Yeah, like I said, if you went to a pet shop and you buy the chameleon, they mostly gave glass, which was, of course, yeah, maybe for a panther or a Yemen, okay. But they were quite fast. People were figuring out that mountains, especially mountain species, were doing better in a full ventilated terrarium. It was not. fully screened. Some made actually a combination of an inside terrarium, but then also in the summer months, an outside terrarium in screen. So they have the benefits of the sun rays in the summer months, and then in the winter months they had actually a fixed terrarium with good ventilation, but not total screen. So with light, with the proper lighting, UV ventilation. So okay, that was something that was already starts going on for many years, and that's okay. You saw the results. The health of the animals was a lot better. Breeding results were coming more and more. I know 15 years ago that the first Deramenses were bred, the first Montiums were bred, Quadricornus. So yeah, slowly we're figuring out temperatures. We had some friends that went to Cameroon. We had some info about temperatures there. So slowly all the puzzle was coming together, and we get an idea like, hey, okay, this is how they live in nature. Temperatures, humidity, and then we find out in the rainforests in the morning they had very thick fogging coming up, and they were hydrating from that. So yeah, it was actually sharing information, getting new information, and also own experience. So yeah, step by step, things were getting better. Yeah.
Okay. So where do we stand now? We've got, we've went through, what was it, 10, 20 years of Madagascar being shut down, and now it's open again. And
for you guys, not in Europe.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Europe we still can have only Pardalis, Lateralis, Ustalet, Verrucosus, and then 4 species of Broccasia, and that's it. All the rest is banned. Yeah. So it's and like I heard now, I have some news from exporters, because many species, there's a lot. Yeah, you went to Madagascar. Many species, the habitats get destructed in an incredible fast time. So they're gonna do a review actually about the population size, about animals that are exported now. So I hope I'm wrong, but it's possible in 2-3 years. Not that they're gonna close down totally, but that many species will get banned again. So I really wish you guys all the luck with start breeding them. Yeah, that's important.
Yeah. Well, let's see. We've got. Panthers are bred. We're getting Lateralis. More people are breeding Lateralis and Parsons. And I would say for Madagascar, those are the 3 species that we have. If Madagascar's shut down right now, those are the 3 species that we would have.
It's a bit, what can I say? I had experience with species like Furcifer pederi, Wilsai, with some smaller, like Nazuta, I bred Campani, and actually those smaller species, Furcifer minor, I bred to F3, 3 generations. I had around 250 babies of them. So it's not that it's that easy, believe me. But what I want to say is, if you keep them properly, taking good care when they come in, taking care for parasites, good hydration, all the perfect setup. There's a lot of information on MedChem where you can find all the data of temperatures, the winter diapause. So actually, it's not that difficult. If you have, of course, some basic information needed. But it is really possible to breed Furcifer pederi, Wilsey, Minor, Campani. So I really wish that already now in the US, in Japan, I have quite good contacts in Japan. Okay, there's already a quite big group that start breeding those 2. So it's and like you say, it's especially still in Europe. The number 1 chameleon is a panther. I mean, it's easy to keep, relative easy to keep. It's bright coloration, and it's like, what are you going to buy for the first your first chameleon? A panther, of course. So 90. If you go to the Ham Fair or whatever, you see panthers. Yeah, I mean, and actually, then you have a little, yeah, Lateralis, some Parsons. Yeah, I'm still keeping myself busy with Quadricornis, Deramensis, Montium. There's maybe like 25, 30 people in whole Europe doing that. So yeah, it's like, yeah, the focus is sadly enough still on the panther and a little bit the other species, and that's where I'm a little bit afraid of, because yeah, things like Montium that I'm doing, because the gene pool is so small, uh, inbreeding is
Yeah,
getting a
yeah.
huge problem, Bill. So if you don't get access to new bloodlines, okay, you will have a few people that breeding them, but if from the beginning you work from one breeding pair, after some generations, yeah, you're starting to have problems. So you need to start now,
Hmm.
preparing to the future.
Yeah, and what I really like is our community has learned how to focus at least a little bit, and we have people working with the small Kaluma, the Peteri, the Wilsey,
Mm-hmm.
and so people are working with Usuleti. I'm trying to work with O'Shaughnessy. Had some infertile eggs, so we'll see. And so
Mm-hmm.
there are attempts to
Mm-hmm.
build these up, but that it just takes years to build that up and multiple people to stick with it. And that is difficult to do, as we've talked about before. Very difficult.
Yeah, but it's not all negative, Bill. To give an example for Europe, let's say Kaluma parsoni. If like 10 years ago, Bill, you hatched out a parson chameleon, it was world news. Like,
Yeah.
wow, after 2 years,
Yeah.
it was a miracle. It went around worldwide. It was incredible, big news. And like last year, I think it was the record year in Europe. I think around 7 people or maybe 8 were hatching out clutches of several subspecies. I think around 300 and 350 babies are born. So
Okay.
yeah, okay, that's but okay. A Parsons is an iconic species, the largest ones, impressive, expensive. So there was a fairly bigger group with an interest in it,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
to really go for it. So I think that's lifted off, and that's amazing. I think for Parsons, also in the States, you guys have some really good results. So I think, okay, that's good. If that would happen for a few other species, Bill, it would be a dream.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I think the danger with the Parsons, even though we're having good results, is there's so many locales, color
Yeah.
variation, yellow giant, the orange eye, yellow lip, Christopher, and so we have the danger of even the Parsons community being spread too thin and
Mm-hmm.
then ending up with, say, if something happens with imports, all of a sudden
Mm-hmm.
we end up with these little pockets of
Mm-hmm.
people that if they were all with the same color variation, it would be
Yeah.
a solid population. But if we've got
Mm-hmm.
yellow giants here, Christopher there, and orange eye over there, it's
Mm-hmm.
like we've created pockets again that are not sustainable. And so, and by the way, I'm not criticizing anybody. This is
No,
incredible
no,
that
no.
we are doing
I
this. I'm just talking
yeah.
about viability looking into the future.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I think, okay, Parsons can live relatively long. That's a benefit. A healthy Parson chameleon can live, let's say, 15 years.
yeah.
So okay, that's the good thing. You can keep them for a long time. You can breed them a long time. But like I said, okay, we have like 5, 6 lines of orange eye, but I think like yellow lip in Europe we have like 3 lines,
Mhm.
and I think Christopher also 2 or 3, and that's really not much. If something happens with one line, you have like just 2 left, Bill, and you see what's coming
Yeah.
up.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah, it's especially, yeah, now you have the wisdom, the luxury to still have the imports. So it would be great if a few people could work together and let's say have like 8 or 9 bloodlines, and then trying to work further to the future too. But yeah, like you said, Bill, for Panthers, no problem. But for the other species, I'm not really a panther person. Yeah, I worked with like 40 species. Panthers, so many people have them, and I think the other species are so fascinating too. Let's give those also a chance, you know. That's my yeah.
Yeah, Jurgen, I think what we need to do, we'll get together with the Madagascar government and CITES, and we say, okay, we're going to shut down Madagascar, and then
Mm-hmm.
every other year we let out 4 species,
Mm-hmm.
and that way, all the breeders, all the people interested in chameleons would value those 4, would invest in those 4, and not get just distracted by all these different species. So we got to
Yeah,
work on that.
I think the ID they had in Tanzania, yeah, now it's totally closed. But okay, I heard some rumors maybe next year it will open. I think the idea in Tanzania was not that bad. They had one certified breeder there, and he could breed Laterispinus, Incornudus, Werneri, the really rare species, and he had a permit from each species to send like 20 animals out worldwide each year. Okay, it was not much, but there was several bloodlines, and
Hmm.
so they were expensive, which was good.
Yep.
But that was actually enough, Bill, to get some new animals, to some new lines, to the breeders that were really into the to breed them on long term. So if they, even if Madagascar should close down, problem is Madagascar is a very poor country. Will they be able to make a really breeding station there? Maybe yes. Who knows? But actually, I think the idea that was there in Tanzania for a few years was not that bad. Make
Hmm.
a small breeding installation in situ, and then okay, export a few bloodlines, a small number worldwide, and then okay, the species can go on in different countries. But
Well,
yeah, of course.
well, let's talk about what do you think the future is going to look like with Madagascar,
Well,
Tanzania, Cameroon. What do you think the future is going to look like?
it's more and more what I hear. Actually, the last years, my exporter also in Cameroon is talking now with his government to start a small breeding farm. He could have a license to breed like 10, 15 endemic Cameroon species, which are like Montium, Peredi, many species that are not longer allowed to be exported, like Quadricornis, and he should be able to breed them. He first need to breed them to F2, I think, and it will be monitored by CITES, that it's really, they hatch out,
Hmm.
they see the
Hmm.
babies. And okay, the plans are there that in on Mount Cameroon, he will make a small farm. Of course, things go small. I gave him a lot of info about making the terrariums in screen in the good location. So yeah, very small steps in a few countries are made. And of course, you need to have a person in that country with the knowledge of working with wild caught, treating them for parasites, house them good, know how to incubate the eggs, and yeah, okay, that's it. It's not impossible. That's yeah, it's yeah, and I think on the long term, Bill, I hope this will happen, especially Madagascar and in a few other countries. Otherwise, the future will be a little tricky. I'm afraid to.
Yeah, when I was in Madagascar, we visited a breeding facility for the golden mantella,
Yeah.
and they were talking about doing the same formula for Europlated species and certain
Yeah.
chameleon species. So there is some work on that. I'm just wondering how quickly they can move, and can they compete with how quickly deforestation is moving.
Yes, I know. I know. Like for frogs in South America, you have already. I think in Bolivia and Panama, you have already some breeding farms from Pamilio, the small strawberry frogs, Histrionica. I know they are actually monitored by the government, and actually with they are sold quite expensive, the captive breds. But with that money, a big part is going to creating parks, national
Mm-hmm.
parks for the animals. So actually, it's a win-win. the animals are the money that comes in for those people that are breeding them. A part goes to protection for actually the native, the population that is still in nature. So that would actually be the good balance. Protect what's still left. Breed a certain number for the breeders
Hmm.
outside, the native country. So money comes in. With that money, try to help nature and what's left. I hope they will find a balance in that. That would be perfect, of course. But in African countries, my experience is things can go slow, Bill.
Yeah.
Very slow.
Oh. So, where do you see husbandry going? What is it that people in Europe and at this point with all of the social media, we may start be working together. But from your perspective, where is chameleon husbandry going? What are you guys working on and developing?
Well, if you see where we come from, like 30 years ago, it was like, what's a UV lamp? You
Yeah.
know, there was nothing, absolutely nothing. And if you see now the latest development, the LEDs technology, fogging, you can buy terrariums with fogging, ventilation, full UV. I mean, the info is there. You have internet, you have your podcasts, which are perfect. The information is very good these days, and I saw a huge development, especially the last 5 6 years. It really took off with the misting, the good terrariums, the knowledge of keeping them outside when it's good weather. It's not only hydration, it's and the lightning and the correct feeding, the good vitamins. It's actually the whole package.
Mhm.
I think if I see the difference 10 years ago when I was selling aquatic cornice, I need to explain everything from the beginning to the end, how to keep them, watering. People knew nothing. And now people come to me when I have baby quadricornis in Europe. I speak for Europe. And oh I have book. I saw the podcast of Bill. I went to Ham, and you see that people reading them in, and there's already a good base.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's I have a very good feeling. Yes,
Okay.
yes, yes. That's positive. Hmm.
Yeah, I have seen in the United States that a very positive development is that number one, people are researching before they get the animal. We're seeing less. We still see impulse buys, but we are
Of course.
seeing much more in the way of people researching before they do the
Hmm.
buy, and
Yeah.
like panther chameleons have become a recipe. You can
Hmm.
go so many different places and find a way to keep panther chameleons, even if those are different ways. They work. Panther chameleons are very tolerant, and so they'll accept
Hmm.
different strategies. And
Yeah.
so we're having a much more success on the beginner point at the beginners because
Hmm.
in the United States, it's a lot easier for a beginner to find a captive hatch panther than it is a wild caught panther. And that's
Yeah. Sure. Hmm.
huge, a
Hmm.
huge improvement as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And we have people caring more about the environment of the chameleon instead of just wrapping a cage around a chameleon.
Hmm.
We've seen much more attention being put to how do I create the 24 hours of the ebb and flow of the hydration cycle? How do I create the environment around the chameleon? And
Hmm.
we're looking into more of the bioactive, which isn't necessarily for the larger chameleons, but it's given us an amazing improvement in some of our smaller chameleons that we never even
Yeah.
lenotum, uh, Loco, and these things that we've
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
tried before.
I know in Germany, I went a few weeks ago to a breeder of Rampholions,
Mm-hmm.
and it was beautiful to see. It was full bioactive, Bill. Terrariums full with live plants, bioactive, springtails, then also a misting, cooling down. They were thriving like in nature. It was so beautiful to see. It was perfection, Bill. It was, yeah. If everybody should do it like that, no, but I mean, it exists. It's the information is there to build it, and of course you have to do some research, trying. Of course, everybody makes mistakes, need to learn. But I saw, and also when I see some parson breeders in Germany, also it was wow. Did they have a setup to go outside in the summer? Huge cages to go into the winter, full planting. Yeah, it's really it's yeah. It makes me happy. It
Yeah.
really that there's a huge progress, Bill. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I really like how more sophisticated our chameleon keeping, at least the upper tier of the chameleon keeping. As people go through the beginner stages up through the intermediary stage, and then they decide, yes, this is what I want to do. There's a larger and a larger group saying, dedicating themselves to what I would say the art of chameleon
Mm-hmm.
herpetoculture instead of just keeping this
Yep.
thing alive and being
Mm-hmm.
happy with that. So I've seen a promising uh, migration towards being serious about being a chameleon keeper.
Yeah, I think at the moment, Bill, the info is there. There's internet. The good quality lamps are there. The vitamins are
Yes,
there.
yes.
The knowledge of how to make food bioactive. The foggers are there.
Hmm.
I mean, everything is there now these days. The full info is available. If you do enough research, I think that that's a huge difference on 10 year and especially 20 years. And 30 years ago, there was nothing. Okay,
Yeah.
so I think at this moment, if you do the efforts, and I think, but people, yeah, that buy now like quadricornis, they are not that cheap these days anymore, Bill. So there are people that already have experience with, let's say, Jacksons. They do all the research. They have the caging. They know everything about fogging, the temperatures. So yeah, I see less losses in my captive bred animals that I sell, and I see more and more breeding results of the babies that I sell also in
Mhm.
Europe. So that's a good sign. If the babies from my babies are breeding, Bill, yeah, that's a good sign.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
Well, Jurgen, do you have, just looking at your personal path in chameleon herpetoculture, do you have goals or things you want to accomplish in the next 5 or 10 years?
Well, I think my biggest goal, Bill, will be like the struggle to find enough bloodlines with the species that I'm working off to continue.
Hmm.
That will be my, and I hope my friend in Cameroon will succeed with
Yeah.
building the farm, getting permits, and sending F3s out. So the knowledge is there. I know how to breed them, how to keep them, how to raise them. But yeah, I'm not a panther man. I love the other, especially mountain species are my favorites. I also have Fursufer balteatus. My friends got Caluma globifer. I work with Johnston I yeah, with so many species. But yeah, it's like making the best out what's left. That will be my struggle a little bit, and let's hope something can come out in a captive way in the years to come.
Well, Jurgen, you have a number of very rare species, a number of species we can't get here. Quadricornis,
Mhm.
Johnstonii, Balteatus. These are incredibly valuable species.
Mhm.
But is that too many species for one person to maintain?
Well, that's why most of the people look at me as the weird guy with too
Yeah.
many animals.
Because, I mean, the thing is, the more successful you are, the bigger the population gets that you have to take care of, to the point where it's going to overwhelm a single person. How, I mean, sooner or later, there's got to be other people working with these things to be able to spread that out. So
That,
it
that,
can
that,
be humanly possible.
Yeah, that's actually what I'm already doing for a few years, Bill. I work together with, let's say now, Johnston and I work in Europe with four people
Okay.
that got them, that got a few groups with Quadricornis, with Deramensis, with Montium. With Montium, we have like 10 people already. So, yeah, I just like you say, you cannot keep everything by one person. I mean, it's just too much. You have to make choices, you know. So we have my closest friends for like 20 years. We share breeding projects, and they keep some bloodlines. I keep some bloodlines. We share babies, and that's because, like you say, it's impossible to do
Mm-hmm.
alone. You need to be for saving a species. Let's say like minimally 5 6 people, Bill, with a few lines, and that's the minimum I'm talking about,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know. And luckily, because the species that I have are so rare, yeah, many people are interested in working with me. So and then a few that I know, my best friends. Okay, with them I closely work with them. They work then with Demeranum and the other species. So yeah, because like you say, alone impossible, Bill.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you need to have a backup. You need to have help.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say I breed a lot of males. They got a lot of females. You need, yeah. I have a bad season, infertile eggs, whatever. They have a better season. Without friends, yeah, you cannot survive.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my side, I'd like to learn more about incubation, especially diapause, and
Hmm.
do some experimentation with diapause. I have a number
Hmm.
of panthers that I am raising up right now, and my intention is to experiment with the effects of diapause on the eggs and try different lengths of time and really understand what's going on with the diapause. Uh, and then I would like to reproduce a Kaluma species.
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
have I have reproduced uh, most of the other genus of chameleons, but not yeah, chameleon. So the Kaluma is one that is on my list of personal experience
Hmm.
to reproduce, and
Yeah.
so right now I'm working with a Shona CI and a little bit of Brevicorn, but we'll see if in a couple of years I can tell you that I've succeeded.
Hey, Bill, and maybe some nice bradypodiums. Wait and see.
Well,
Wait and see.
I've already
I'm not
reproduced
gonna say
Thunderbaits.
anything more. Okay. No, but yeah, if you, the actually where we are talking about, if you see the evolution over 30 years, the main thing is positive. The information now so much better, knowledge, experiences. And yeah, okay. The thing is, share the information, work together, find each other, especially to go for a few breeding projects, and try to keep the species, yeah, alive for years and years to come. That's the goal.
Yeah, Jurgen, I'm actually hoping that Tanzania doesn't open because
Well, I heard now that something would happen, that it will be stricter with very low quota, which is positive. It's all not set yet, and it's all not confirmed. But I think, yeah, the imports. Madagascar will not exporting wild caught animals forever. Bill, you know that.
I
I
know
know
that.
that.
But if you look at the community, we have a number of people that are finally getting serious and with Madagascar species. I mean,
I know one of the best example is Michael Nash
yes,
in the
yes,
States. I mean, if there would be 15 Michael Nash in the
yes,
US, no, I mean, Bill, it
yes,
would be
yes.
like,
This is true. But
no, it's
but if the thing
because
is, we've got examples like that. Michael
Mhm.
Nash, Kevin Stanford, and Carl Coteau, they're starting to work with the
Yeah,
Petri,
yeah,
and you've got Campani in there, Lenotum, and we'll see. We've got colony of Wilsey here, and Lateralis, and people are starting to work with Usoleti and O'Shaughnessy. And when I say work with, I don't mean, oh, I've got a pair, oh, aren't I cool, but really concentrating on it and working with it. And that can continue until somebody opens up another candy store and distracts everybody. And if Tanzania opens up, it's like we're going to lose half of the attention. And I don't mean just from those breeders. I also mean for the general public that we desperately need to be interested in the Madagascar species to buy what the breeders produce. And if another candy store opens up, it's like, oh, we lose so much attention and everybody's distracted, spread thin, and everybody's got all these different species. And then when thing closes down, we have nothing to show for it.
Yeah, because exactly, I mean, people already now are like, oh, if it opens, Mallory disappeared, Murraymontanus disappeared. And now they're already cooking, excitement, you know, and I mean, Tanzania is closed 5 or 6 years. I mean, we lost Mallory, we lost Werneri, I mean, everything was collapsing, Bill, in like 2 years. I mean, people don't learn it, and just like you say, if it should open, all the attention will go to there, and they're gonna be, I have the first Mallory, I have the first this. What will be the breeding again on the long term, and then the focus will no longer be on Madagascar, maybe, and then Madagascar will close.
Yes, and
you will remember you will remember my words, believe me, and then it's like, oh damn. Yeah, well, who's got a Campani left? Who's got another species left? I mean, it's very difficult to keep people focused on a long-term one species project or something, you know? Okay, but in Europe, a few are there, and I think a handful in the US. I hope for more.
It's just difficult to find people. And rightfully so. This isn't a criticism. This is the way it is. When you get to people that are focused enough to really make a difference, that is definitely the advanced. And by definition, few people get to the PhD program. I mean, because they were just in it for a little bit. They enjoyed it. They left. And so we're never going to have a whole lot of people just all of a sudden dedicate themselves to chameleons. But I mean, I'd love a Daramensis. I love Daramensis. When I lost my last Daramensis a couple, like 2-3 years ago. I had him for like 12 years. And I'd love that. But there I go. Then I will be distracted.
The good news, Bill, is for Daramensis, the last year there were some good breeding successes in Europe. I think around 15-20 people got pairs breeding now. The only problem is we have like 3 lines left. Okay, but I think export will be possible in next year probably.
What I'm saying, Jurgen, like is I don't want the distraction. Honestly, right now, I am focusing my efforts, and so I am slowly reducing the diversity that I'm working with, so I can focus on one particular species. So the last thing I need is for Tanzania to open up, or for you to start saying, "Hey, I'll send it to you."
No, but it's really. I hope many people see also these interviews and you know, giving people ideas that are passionate, keeping chameleons, not only panthers. They really want to work with certain species for the long term, and I hope we can motivate, Bill, even if it is a handful of people. With working, getting like Michael, you know, or like those few in Europe. Let's hope for the best.
And everybody out there, I know it is so hard to only keep one chameleon or one type of chameleon. Once you start getting good at chameleons, and then once you start seeing all the wonderful chameleons out there, it's so easy to just want them all. But if you are really dedicated to chameleons and you think that's an important part of your life, consider focusing. And that is where the real advancement is going to be in our chameleon herpetoculture, is when people focus long
Yep.
term on a species. And so I absolutely encourage you to do that. And I know how hard it is. I absolutely know how
Sure.
hard it is. And Jurgen
Yeah,
knows
yeah,
how hard it is too.
believe it, believe it. Okay.
So, all right, Jurgen. I think we've covered the past and the future of chameleon
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
herpetoculture. Uh,
It was really a pleasure to do the interview, Bill.
as always, thank you so very much, and we will see you. We will definitely see you again here. So,
Sure. Okay. Thanks very much,
bye.
and bye to everybody. Bye bye. Okay.